Let's move right along. Alicia.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to offer one publisher's perspective. This is very much from Elsevier, but I would say that a lot of things that we have already heard this morning resonate very clearly with the way we think about these programs internally. We have a strategic objective to help realize a vision for universal access to information. We think that access to research literature is really important. It can help society advance in a lot of ways. We have a dedicated team of people that are tasked with driving that vision, and we are responsible for our engagement with a variety of philanthropic programs, but a broad array of other access initiatives as well. I think our engagement with Research for Life in particular is sometimes dismissed as a cynical PR ploy. What we've found, though, is we haven't actually been promoting it as much as perhaps we need to do. Many of our authors and editors aren't aware that we participate in that program, and they can be under the misimpression that the titles that they contribute to aren't widely accessible in the developing world. So I think the publishing community actually needs to do a little bit more to step up our game in being more promotional so we can help raise awareness. Let me start by saying that it's not only about Research for Life. There are a variety of really powerful access initiatives and underway to promote access in developing countries. And if you can participate in only one, Research for Life is probably the best one. But if you have the capacity and the interest in extending your participation more broadly, that's terrific. And the broader, the better. To give you some examples of the things that we're engaged with, IFL does licensing in some emerging countries. These are all kind of horrible acronyms, but I can unpack them for you if you need to. ICTP-EJDS is an outfit out of the University of Trieste in Italy, and it provides free access to physicists in developing countries through the physics department at Trieste. So they have this network of personal connections. They bring developing world scholars in physics to campus, help train them, etc. With INASP, they do licensing in some countries. We've also provided them with metadata and technology so that they can showcase on the web publications that are written by authors in developing countries. KIT is an initiative, it's a Dutch initiative to provide access to content that's related to tropical diseases. And we provide content to them that relates to HIV and AIDS care, malaria, tuberculosis, those sorts of things. Research for Life we'll hear a lot about today, and TEAL, which, Mary, I think you're going to talk about, so I won't say too much about that. There are a variety of other things that we do as a publishing company, and I suspect many of you will as well. We have country-level partnerships. For example, in some places like in Egypt, we work with the Ministry of Science and the Ministry of Education to provide content, but also to help their local publishing industry build capacity to get the voice of Egyptian scientists heard more broadly internationally. We sell direct into many of these countries, particularly for the research-intensive universities. They may have specific needs that can be better served by working directly with a publisher. We have a charitable foundation which supports libraries in emerging markets. And we're also finding some of our broader access initiatives, like participation in Deep Dive, is having an impact. I occasionally hear from scientists in countries that have free access via Research for Life that it can be sometimes more convenient for them to access through Deep Dive, for example, in the evening at home. So it can be very powerful to be offering researchers in these countries multiple avenues of access, so they can work in the way that suits them. Our open access content is obviously freely available as well in these countries through our platforms, but we also put that content through programs like Research for Life, because it's not really just about access, it's about the support infrastructure and arrangements that go around it that make it useful. I'll focus a little bit on Research for Life. As I say, it's the biggest and it has the biggest impact of these programs. I have some information about the background, and I won't go into that. That's not what Phil wanted us to talk about today. What I would say is that since 2002, when the program went live, it has made a dramatic impact on access. For 78 of the world's poorest countries, Research for Life waives all charges for content, and in 28 countries, charges are reduced by over 99.9%. So as a community, the publishing community, working in partnership with UN agencies and libraries, this is a tremendously positive initiative. I'll also say that it's a successful collaboration. If you imagine 4 UN agencies, 190 publishers, lots of big important libraries all working, there are all sorts of tensions and problems. And I think Phil would really like us to air our dirty laundry in public more often and more rigorously, but that's not always the way to get things to happen in practice. There's quite a lot of diplomacy and delicacy to these relationships, and that's handled well, it's done well behind closed doors. I think one thing that holds us together as a community is that there seems to be a very genuine shared commitment to supporting the Millennium Development Goals of the UN agencies, and in particular a commitment to expanding access to education, health, food, and the environment. Access to information is one of the things that's necessary to get us all there. So, Research for Life helps us as a publisher extend our global footprint. It's not the only way that we work in these various countries appearing before you on the screen, but it's one of the important ways. And particularly for small or medium-sized institutions that we will never have the capacity to reach directly, Research for Life is fundamental for providing access. Elsevier provides content in every country on the planet where there isn't a political embargo in place. And personally, I think we should be providing content there, but our board of directors perhaps don't want to go to jail for my principles, so I haven't quite won that argument yet. But there is a real passionate commitment, I think, to extending access in any way possible. Oh, God. Let's go. Okay. Daniel, in particular, is going to be talking about usage and metrics from Research for Life, so I'm going to skip quickly over this. Phil's looking interested because there are data points. I'm an anthropologist. I deal with feelings and people, individuals, not with data. We can come back to this. The key point I wanted to make with this slide is that we do see year-on-year usage and download growth through participation in Research for Life. This isn't current. It only goes to 2008, I think. But what is perhaps more interesting is that we also see a dramatic increase in authorship from these countries a few years after access becomes available through the program, and we think that's an important metric of success. Now the next this is going to challenge you at this early time in the morning to do some multitasking, because I'm going to be talking at you while you're looking at the slides, and what I'm saying isn't going to be on the slides. So the 2 slides give you just a single user's kind of experience of having access to Research for Life. This person, for example, I find these use cases actually really inspiring to see how people actually benefit. He was a bit shocked to discover that his research wasn't as innovative as he thought, but was able to kind of step up to the challenge of therefore figuring out ways to advance his research and to improve the quality of his publications and get into the international literature. From a publisher's perspective, this is quite interesting, because it does suggest that as we widen access in developing countries, we also need to take responsibility for helping support authors in these places. And that can create various challenges for us all. It means that there will be new authors who won't necessarily, in the first instances, be able to take on some of the burden of peer review or editorship. So that can create tensions. There are some countries in the world, the United States, for example, providing more input for peer review and editing than can be shared equitably at the minute with the state of the international research community. We also find that authors from some of these countries can be very unfamiliar with how you prepare a research paper or how you submit it, how you credit the authors and the various contributors. So a lot of training and support necessary for them. And of course, some are English native speakers, but many are not. And that can create some issues as well. We also find sometimes that there can be cultural attitudes about slicing research to maximize the number of publications rather than a commitment to quality. And so again, support and training. And there are a variety of issues around copyright, plagiarism, duplicate publication, etc. So it requires support and a commitment to us as a community to provide that support. Similarly, despite many success stories and many individuals who benefited, it would be wrong to claim that Research for Life or any of these initiatives has solved all the access challenges that exist, and much work remains to be done. For example, if you're a researcher in a developing country and you don't have regular, reliable electricity supplies or internet connectivity, having free access to journals isn't going to fundamentally change your problems or improve them. So the UN agencies in Research for Life in particular play a powerful role in lobbying national governments to understand the value of investing in research and development, in researchers themselves, and in providing enabling infrastructure that enables them to work. There are lots of challenges. We are quite rigorous. This is for Phil. We're quite rigorous in private about challenging ourselves to recognize and address problems, and pretty demanding. It's a continual improvement process, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily documented in full public view. So these are some of the areas that we're working on at the minute. The last one I thought would be particularly relevant for this audience. There has been a kind of a necessity through Research for Life to either be in or out at country level, and there are some nice improvements underway to give publishers more flexibility. If you can support shibboleth authentication, then you have a lot of flexibility in the sort of institutions you work with. And finally, Elsevier is committed to Research for Life and these other access initiatives for the long term. We think it's terrific that so many publishers are there alongside us, but there's always room for one more. So if there's anybody in the room that isn't currently involved actively in Research for Life, please do talk to anybody on the panel. We'd be delighted to help you get involved. And it can be any subject matter, not just the 4 program areas. Any content's welcome. Thanks.
Great. We have time for some brief questions for Alicia.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm wondering if you do have any data on the publishers that have participated and whether they've seen, for example, when a country moves from Tier 1 to Tier 2, whether they have seen any sort of additional uptake in subscriptions, whether they've seen growth in some of these countries as a result of participating in the program for a number of years.
So we have Elsevier data, and I guess other publishers get data as well. We can see usage level at country level, but no granularity within institutions at this point. And we could monitor and track that, but I have to say we don't spend a lot of staff resource on doing that analysis because we're committed to participating, thinking that this is a good thing. It's not something that we have to justify annually. But I don't know.
So I can answer that anecdotally. So I agree completely. There's no insight at the institution level on the research for the Highwire World Bank Free Access to Developing Economies program.
But I have heard anecdotally from publishers that where they have offered free access to a developing country and then made the decision to no longer offer access to that country, for example, India, that they have subsequently seen a big uptick in subscriptions. Now, India is a big economy, so or small, big country, little economy.
Was India ever in free? I remember early on, China was in there too.
Exactly. It was very early on the World Link.
It's really based on per capita income. I didn't think India was ever in to begin with.
Yes.
That's right. There's an interesting conversation underway at the Executive Committee of Research for Life at the minute about whether countries like India, particularly for smaller and medium-sized institutions that publishers aren't able to reach directly, using our new, more flexible customer relationship system and our authentication systems, if perhaps there's an opportunity to offer publishers the option of providing free access to some institutions, but not all within the country, which I think personally could be a tremendous way to extend access. Clearly needs to be discussed with industry bodies and the wider industry. Yeah.
Daniel Dollar, there should be time at the very end for some general